Alright guys, we're back for another Dokkan battle video. So we're gonna do a little bit of a challenge video here. I took the Cell team. I guess specifically what I used was androids. Essentially, I've just restricted myself to the android category team. Cell, of course, has two leader skills. Android / Cell Saga and Power Absorption. That covers the majority of the good android characters in the game, right? I don't know if only with Android / Cell Saga could we no-item every stage of the Red Zone. Maybe. But Super 17 does play a very crucial role on these teams. He's a very powerful unit. Both of the Super 17s are good. I think you guys will find that throughout a lot of the most difficult content, though, it is AGL Super 17 who will be far more impressive. LR Super 17 just is not designed with enough love and care to make him highly relevant in the super difficult content, right? The struggles for him to get his key, as well as his just not overly impressive defense for what the role he wants to fulfill, just leaves a lot to be desired, right? So, we're starting with a Turles fight. I don't know that there's really, like, anything to talk about in this Turles fight. Like, this opening rotation is against 5 enemies, so, you know, Cell can certainly look good. Turles, after this, goes to LR Turles, I believe he's STR, and then we finish out against an Int Turles, but, I mean, this stage is more so just a warm-up. I think that the Int Turles can, you know, hit reasonably hard, potentially a little bit tougher than, like, a God of Destruction enemy, or maybe, like, on par with them. But, I mean, this Turles fight is certainly not anything too impressive. So I'll just move on. I'll give commentary for each boss sort of at the start of their section. Again, dude, Turles is just, like, free. Like, there's not really much to talk about here. Alright, so now we're over here fighting Lord Slug. I did cycle in the AGL LR androids on here. More so just for a little bit of variety, more so than anything, right? The later stages are going to require pretty much just the same setup. It's only in the earlier stages, I think, where I could use, you know, some of the other Cell characters or like AGL 17, 18. Not that they're bad. It's just, again, like this is not like beating it. We're no iteming it, right? Like I think a lot of these characters, like if you just want to win, right? Like, you know, a lot in Cell, physical LR Cell, the AGL LR androids, like you could run all these characters, but like in terms of like getting like the no item like clean runs, it's like a very similar setup to sort of like what I'm using is what's necessary. So the AGL LR androids, remember, they are good. You know, they do give a lot of key support for villain units. They're giving a lot of defensive support as well. They just overall can be a very helpful unit to bring on the team. I decided to bring them for this fight right here because Lord Slug, right? So we start out against 3 enemies. A lot of the movie fights sort of do open in a similar fashion. We are going up against multiple enemies at the start. So it could be good to potentially have you, you know, maybe stack up the defense for some characters or get your rotations in check, right? You are able to do this in a lot of the sort of like movie like side of things, right? Like it's not really too tough being able to sort of set things up. Now, after we beat this first phase right here against the 3 henchmen, we fight, I believe, a physical Lord Slug. It's just sort of like a regular Lord Slug. And then finally, his giant phase is STR. Now, this Lord Slug, I feel, you know, maybe this is not true, but it feels to me like he's a big step up from Turles. Just in my personal runs, I've found Lord Slug to be more difficult, right? Like, you know, when the first set of fights first happened, Slug was the only fight that really made me sort of like raise my eyebrow, right? It was only the Slug fight. Now, I think in this rotation right here, we potentially could be in trouble, I think, if not for the fact that he does Key Blast. Like, he does damage to 19 and 20, but this unit is just so stupid, right? They heal on super attack, and then if, you know, these dumbass bosses with their key-based super attacks decide to do this, they say, well, thanks, cocksucker. Thanks for the healing, right? Like, that's all that happens. So, like, that's the thing. Cell and his team, like, you know, Cell's going on the thumbnail. Cell's probably going on the title here. But, like, don't pretend as though this is Cell carrying everything. You know, the tech androids, the int androids, you know, int Android 16 has a lot of good moments. You know, AGL Super 17 has a lot of good moments in allowing us to get all of these no-item runs. The rest of this run, I think, basically is just letting, you know, Cell and the androids just slowly whittle Lord Slug down. You know, we haven't had to utilize the tech android's active skill yet or anything like that. So, you know, we'll just slowly sort of take Slug down. Cell, perfect Cell is insane, right? And him being AGL is going to allow him, like, one good turn, and he's cutting off a lot of Slug's HP once we're in the STR phase, right? So, not really going to have too much to worry about there. guys, now we're going up against Cooler. Now, Cooler is I think, a pretty tough fight, actually. Cooler can sneak up on you. The damage Cooler does is, like, a lot. Cooler hits ridiculously hard, right? I was doing, I was doing a stream on 5.9. I believe we were waiting for the Twitter info for LR Goku and Gohan while I was recording all of these movie side runs. We did the first 6 movie stages all in a row without losing, right? So, Turles, Lord Slug, Cooler, Android 13, Bojack, Janemba, right? We knocked all those out. The only fight in there I lost to was this Cooler fight. I did have one loss in trying to do this challenge against Cooler, just because, again, that final phase of Cooler, he does so much damage. I actually don't know. I'd have to look it up, like try and find the info of exactly how hard Cooler hits, but he might very well be one of the hardest hitting bosses in the game, right? And I think he's like way, way, way up there. And then don't forget that Cooler is a countdown super attack character, but Cooler's countdown super attack is the Supernova, right? It is a key-based super attack, so you can utilize that to your advantage. In this run, because Cooler goes, again, like most of these fights, we have a couple of henchmen right here, the Cooler Armored Squadron. Then after this, he becomes STR base Cooler, and then, of course, we go against physical final form Cooler. The thing about the physical final form Cooler, right, is that he is physical, so I had no problem bringing the STR support cell in here. STR support cell is definitely a very good unit. And he could definitely, you could probably get through, with no item runs of, probably every red zone boss. Broly would be tough with an STR unit. If you're running an STR unit that's not, guarding or something like that, Broly is going to be insanely hard to get through, right? I wonder, is it possible to beat Broly mono STR? Probably not. That'd be an interesting challenge. I'll look into that. Maybe with the Goku and Gohan led team, so you'd have double Gohan on each rotation, maybe it'll be possible. That would be very tough to go through AGL Broly with only STR though. But I'm getting sidetracked there. Regular Cooler right here, not really too much of an issue. Remember that, once we get to physical Cooler and his potential to sort of do the countdown super attack, we do have the android's active skill Ghost Usher in our back pocket. Dude, look at Cell. This is what can happen when you go up against some of these tougher bosses in the red zone. And if you have a good rotation, right, where he's next, 19 and 20, if any STR phases, Cell can nearly just one-shot these phases instantaneously. He just does so much damage. Now, remember that Cooler, like a lot of these countdown bosses, is going to work the same, right, where he will have his first phase, and then he supers at the end of the second phase, right? So basically, I know if I use the android's Ghost Usher right here, then that means they would come back around in 2 turns, and I potentially could have them in front of Cooler's key-based super attack, right? The Supernova is his countdown. The Supernova is definitely strong enough to kill you, right? But, with Android 17 and 18, you can nullify it, and then with 19 and 20, you could absorb it, right? So it's while it is tough, and this guy does a lot of damage on normal attacks, too. You have to be very cautious about which units you're putting in front of Cooler's attacks, but, with proper play, you could sort of play around it. And we'll go ahead and take Cooler down here, again, using the android's active skill, good turns by Cell and stuff like that, and we can disintegrate Cooler. So, all right, there we go. Let's move on to, we'll finish playing it, but my commentary, I'm going to move on to the next part. Alright guys, now we're fighting Android 13. Android 13 is probably one of the easier fights in all of the red zone. Besides, like, the first stage on each side is just completely free, right? But this fight, I just don't know what they were thinking, because it's like, so we start out against Androids 14 and 15, right? We take the two of them out, and then you have double AGL phases. I just like it. I feel like that neutralizes the challenge of this, right? Like, they probably should have made the second phase, Android 13, he should have been int, right? Which would have made this this fight, you know, much more difficult to sort of get through. But the way it's constructed right now, dude, you just come in here with all your powerful tech units, and you disintegrate this guy. Now, remember that the gimmick behind Android 13 is you cannot dodge, which is definitely tough, but that doesn't affect the Android team, right? The Android team does not rely on dodging. Like, none of these characters are, like, dodging characters, right? Because the two androids, right, are nullifying, right? The absorption and then 17 and 18's block, it's nullification that they're doing. So, you know, like, we don't have to worry about anything. Android 13 does not do key-based super attacks, so it's not like we can block them with 17 and 18 and 19 and 20. But, like, we're still not really going to encounter issues. And then 17 and 18, of course, are tech, so they're going to disintegrate this guy. This was another opportunity for me to bust out LR Super 17, because, you know, most of the fight is against a tech enemy. I really would be able to get away with just, you know, having him just sit there in the front rotation, and he's not really going to take, like, a lot of damage and stuff like that, like he potentially would against a lot of these other tough red zone bosses, right? Because it's like, you might, you know, look at a screenshot of LR Super 17 on Twitter and be like, wowie, zowie, his defense is so high. But it's like, once you come in here, no, it's not. No, sir. That boy, Super Android 17 right here, this LR, he's designed as though he also has, like, 50% damage reduction or nullification or something. But guess what? He doesn't have that shit. So instead, he just gets his ass slapped inside out, is what usually happens in a lot of these tough fights. Just definitely one of the worst design units ever. He's way up there, I think, personally. Super Tech LR Super 17. But, I mean, there's not really too much more for me to say in this fight, right? Again, none of these units really rely on dodging except for Cell, but, I mean, Perfect Cell is able to touch, like, 1,000,000 defense anyway, right? Like, it's not... He dodges, but he's so good... Like, it doesn't matter, right? Like, that's not like a hindrance to the team. There's other teams, right, where, you know, it's relying on units, you know, that really could dodge and stuff like that. Not the Android team, though. This fight is honestly pretty free. So, I'll move on commentary to the next part. Alright guys, so now we're gonna fight Bojack. Now, Bojack is a very difficult fight. The thing that makes Bojack so difficult is in his final phase, he locks and seals every single turn. Now, there's been a lot of bosses in the game's history that have locked, that have sealed, right? Sealing, by the way, is becoming a much more devastating effect that bosses can do. Back in the day, it's like you get sealed on one of your strong units. It's like, oh no, you know, whatever, we'll be fine. Not a big deal. Just more of an annoyance than anything. Nowadays, though, sealing, look at any good unit. How much defense they're getting from their super attack effects, on super attack, all these different abilities. Bosses sealing you can be a huge, like, devastating. This takes, you know, some of the most defensive units in the game, down, turns them into kittens, right? Getting completely pummeled by these tough bosses. Now, Omega is very difficult in that he can seal and lock as well. But the difference is Omega does it the first phase. Now, it is annoying to have to deal with the first phase. It's very difficult to get set up. But once you make it past the first phase, you know, with good team building and proper play, knowledge of how hard Omega is going to hit, like, you'll be able to make it through. What makes Bojack so difficult is it's the end where he's locking and sealing. And unlike every other boss, even Omega, right? Omega's first phase, he does not lock and seal you guaranteed every turn. Bojack does. There's nothing you can do about it. You get to Bojack, the tech Bojack at the end, and one unit will be locked and one unit will be sealed every single turn, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, when it comes to taking Bojack down at the end, honestly, you do need some good luck, right? You know, most people just tear through the red zone using the 7th anniversary LRs and their teams. You know, Fuse Fighter, GT Hero, like these teams that just like disintegrate these stages. So I feel like a lot of people like didn't even realize exactly how hard Bojack is, because I think what they did to sort of offset it is Bojack, by the way, Cell going crazy, right? A lot of these opening fights are against multiple enemies, right? But the thing about the Cell fight, or the thing about this Bojack fight right here is that he doesn't have a lot of HP at the end. You can sort of like get through him without really too many issues, like in terms of like damage wise. It's not like Broly is annoying because he just has so much HP. You're fighting Broly for like AGL Broly. You're fighting him for like 5+ turns a lot. Like, it's insane how much HP Broly has. If you're not using like the LR gods, or, you know, very soon like LR Super Saiyan Goku and Gohan to just take off 50 health bars from Broly, that fight can just go on forever, dude, right? Whereas Bojack is not really like that. While Bojack, again, is very annoying once we get to the final phase, you know, we can sort of like play around it. So going in here, like, I'm well aware of how difficult Bojack is, and knowing what that final phase is like. I've complained about it a lot, where I've seen people act like, oh yeah, Bojack is free and stuff like that, and he's really not free. He is not free. The other thing too about Bojack does not do key-based super attacks, right? So it's like, remember, you know, 17 and 18 and 19 and 20 cannot be super attacked, for the most part, by enemies that do key-based supers, right? 17 and 18 can be hit by a key-based super attack if they're under 35% HP, but I actually have never had that happen, where they got hit by a key-based super, but it was, you know, under 35% HP. I've never had it happen where, like, that's actually, like, occurred, right? But it is possible. It can. And then, of course, 19 and 20, they'll always absorb it. So that does kind of, like, hamper just, like, the way I've been utilizing these teams a little bit. So we're going to have to rely on characters like Int Android 16 and 16 and 18 a little bit more. Now, 16 and 18... I don't know exactly how they work. It is weird. Their guard definitely is able to be activated mid-turn. I mean, people can let me know if they've seen this before. I've never seen the androids, 16 and 18. I've never seen them guard before they attack. So we actually managed to get Int Cell's transformation here, which is crazy, right? I was like, wow, okay. I felt okay bringing Int Cell to this fight because of the fact that we would be going up against a tech enemy at the end, right? So it's like, you know, it's not like we're going to get locked with him in like slot 1 and Bojack is going to do 1,000,000 damage on a super attack to us and we instantly lose. That's not going to happen. You know, giving us the extra type advantage character towards the end is very helpful. Another character I would have probably used, honestly, Int Hellfighter 17, I would have used him on this team if we were able to, but remember, there's only a few androids that are not actually on Cell's leader skill, and those are 2 of them. The Int Hellfighter 17 and then the AGL Trenchcoat 17 are not on Cell's team. They're not on Android Cell Saga, obviously, and then they're also not on Power Absorption either, so that can hamper us a bit. Now, 16 and 18, I've explained them. They're a unit that can be helpful, but for the most part, I just don't want to like have them get hit by tough bosses, right? Because sometimes they guard, sometimes they don't. It's just unfortunately sort of how that goes with that unit. So here we go. We get to Bojack. Again, the way Bojack works, every single turn, a character gets locked, a character gets sealed. This hurt us bad. Actually, an opportunity to use Cell's active skill was crazy. I was so excited about this, right? I don't get to see this one very often, but we weren't able to have all of his crazy links active because he locked 16 in slot 1. I don't know. That did almost 2,000,000 damage, and look at that did 2,000,000 damage, and look how much health Bojack still has. But you could see, just look at his health bars, that it's just not as big as like Broly and stuff like that. So Int 16, by the way, I have not really discussed him much in the video up to this point. He has guaranteed guard against 3 enemies. So, you know, in some of the earlier fights against multiple enemies, we're able to take advantage of that. And then, of course, if the entire rotation is Android Cell Saga, you have a 50% chance to activate it. So oftentimes, I'm able to keep him on a rotation, and then we look at the damage Int Cell took right there, crazy. We're able to keep Int 16 on a rotation, and then Super 17 on the other rotation. The other thing 16 does is he gets, I believe it's 60% damage reduction if his guard is up, which against, it was anyway, but against type advantage, so anytime 16 is hit by a tech type enemy, it counts as guard, and thus he has the damage reduction active. So, you know, able to use the android's active skill, we're able to, you know, sort of slowly work our way through this. Again, just notice that every single turn, again, Bojack will be sealing and locking a character. So there is definitely some RNG here, but we are able to make it through. Alright guys, so next we are fighting Janemba. Now Janemba was a fight I was actually terrified of because Cell, we all know Cell is great. Goated unit, very powerful, tremendous, right? Yep, we all agree. But I am not impressed with first and second form Cell at the start of fights, unless you're going up against multiple enemies. They're just not that impressive, the Cells. And so in this fight against Janemba, we have to deal with Janemba, who is tech, against when Cell is at his weakest. So this was just a scary phase, because it's like, if Janemba connects with Cell, we're dead, basically, on a super attack. And of course, oh my god, of course, we got the typical rotation right here. Again, I'm terrified, because if Janemba super Cell, I don't think there's literally anything we could do to survive. Maybe if Cell had, like, all of his links activated, right? So their 16 and 18 aren't able to guard. This actually doesn't look good. Oh, but then their guard is able to activate right there. Thank goodness. Right, because, yeah, we're taking a lot of damage. Do we dodge? I don't remember how this went. I guess Janemba just doesn't super in this turn. So even though we got the very unlucky double Cell rotation, Janemba just decided not to super. Okay, yeah. Remember that 16 and 18, they are giving support, right? I hate the fact that the unit does not give key support, but they are still giving a very good, it's like 34% defensive support or something like that they're giving to the rotation going against extreme class enemies. So that certainly is something that is able to help quite a bit, right? Getting extra defensive support will be able to help us. Janemba, by the way, does not do key-based super attacks again. So, you know, we're not going to be able to sort of cheese him with, you know, 19 and 20 and 17 and 18. I believe Janemba is actually, at the end, he's a weapon super attack type, I believe. I believe Rage Janemba, the LR Rage Janemba, I believe he is a weapon type. And then I think that it's the Super Janemba, you know, the Tech Transform Janemba, I believe it's the second phase, except he's int in this. I believe he's just like an undefined super attack. Like, I often call them combos, but I mean, I guess they're sort of like just like undefined or whatever, right? I do hate that. I wish that is the one thing that sucks about this sort of like super attack class system. There really, I think, should only be 3: key, melee, and weapon, right? Like, so it's just like, just do it. So if the super attack starts with a key blast, it's a key blast super. If the super attack starts with a physical hit, it's a physical, like a melee one. Even if it ends with like a Kamehameha at the end, if it starts with a physical one, just make it physical. That's all they have to do. That's the way it used to be. And I think it was much better than this sort of like system. Especially like there's characters, the weapon typing, like what is the point? There's so few characters that have, I don't know, dude, I don't know. Don't ask me, man. That's stupid. Okay, so we make it past the first phase, Tech Fat Janemba. Now we make it to this Janemba right here. Again, this is the Tech Janemba, like sort of his transformed state. But notice that he is actually still, he's int right here. There's not really anything, like, I guess, notable to talk about with this Janemba, besides the fact that he's got this little rage meter thing here. This is it, by the way. Janemba is basically just a 2-phase fight, Fat Janemba and then Super Janemba. Super Janemba has got infinity HP, essentially, though. We do have to sort of, like, you know, wear him down. He does have that Fury meter, just like Beerus and stuff like that. I feel like my recommendation when fighting these types of bosses that have these Fury meters is to just, like, almost not even worry about it and just try and get them to that Fury mode as fast as possible, right? And then try and, like, team build, like... So, Janemba is int right here. After we get him into his Fury mode, he actually does become, physical instead, right? So, it's just one of these things where it's like, you know, maybe we could overload on STR units. STR units actually probably are the way to go in here. Maybe I probably could have and should have brought second form Cell for this one, but this is the exact same team build I used to take down Omega and Broly. And I took the Janemba fight very serious, whereas I was sort of like goofing off and clowning around fighting like Turles and Slug and stuff like that. Janemba I was fearful of because of that first phase, and Janemba hits really hard. So like I was taking him super serious, and I went in here essentially with my super serious build. We were able to get him done in one try, but you know, a lot of that is just like RNG on where a lot of the super attacks and stuff like that is. So see, like, look at this turn. Like, very likely Janemba's super attacking for 1,000,000 damage in slot 1. What do I do here? Do I just leave Cell and try and dodge it? Or do I put 16 and 18 in slot 1 and just go for the guard? Right? It's like these are sometimes the options we're left with. And then 19 and 20, we don't want to, you know, put them in slot 1. Yeah, dude, Janemba hits hard. Look at that damage. Cell does get most of his defense on super attack, sure, but it's not like, dude, Janemba's not hitting very hard right there. But we're able to sort of like piece it together. All right, so now let's go ahead and I will switch and do the commentary on the final part, Broly. Alright guys, so this is going to be the final fight here in the red zone. This of course is the red zone Broly fight. This is the hardest fight in the game by far. One of the major reasons for that though is Broly does cancel dodging. You cannot dodge Broly, which is one of the primary reasons that he's so tough. Because it's like you have to go through a million phases. He's swapping, right? He goes from STR to tech to STR to AGL, so he's like bouncing between phases. His third phase is an AoE phase. Definitely the cheapest boss in the game. You can only survive Broly's third phase with very specifics. It is very, very specific setups you have to use if you're going to take down that AoE Broly, right? Now, this run definitely was, very RNG heavy. I'm not going to pretend like I just casually dick slapped Broly and we easily won. I think this took like 9 or so attempts or something like that when I first got Cell to level 10 Links. I had several runs get very close, but 16 and 18, man. I just wish the unit was a little bit better designed. Just a little bit more consistent, a little bit better defensively. And this could have been just much easier to go through. I don't know what it is, but Broly was just obsessed with killing them. I lost so many runs to just them flat out getting incinerated, right, by Broly. His AoE phase, his final phase. So remember that Broly, right? The first phase is kind of a warm-up. None of the top tier units for this Android team stun, though. Keep that in mind, because both the first phase of the Broly fight and the first phase of the Omega fight, both of those can sort of be cheesed or worked around with stun, right? You could stun the first phases. That does not work against Broly. It does work against Broly, but the Android team doesn't have a stunning character, right? And then once we get to the second phase, this is where Broly really steps up in difficulty. Tech Broly hits very, very hard. And it is a huge annoyance because you really do want to have some strong AGL units on the team for the AoE phase, right? So it's like having to deal with this guy is very annoying. I think at least a couple of runs kind of hit a snag against this Broly super attacking Cell. Not really Cell's fault so much, right? Again, remember that Cell is pretty mediocre against one enemy until he becomes perfect, right? Once you're in perfect form, you don't really have to worry too much even against type disadvantage. What else do I need to talk about here? Obviously, the 17-18, they're the MVP of this event. They're the main reason we beat Broly, for sure. I guess LR Super 17, I should point this out, that LR Super 17 actually takes more damage, I've found, against AGL Broly than AGL Super 17 does, which is just disgraceful, pathetic, unacceptable. Again, LR Super 17 is designed as though he has key blast nullification and shit, but he doesn't. It's very, I can't tell you what they were thinking, because I don't think they were thinking when they made him. I will always hate on that unit for the worst design ever. And anyone with eyeballs and a brain can see how poorly they messed up with that character. Okay, so beautiful. Yep, not surprising this was the no item run. Look at this turn right here, right? So AGL Super 17 will take almost nothing, especially if he supers first. 19 and 20, they will absorb and heal it, right? So 23k, then they absorb it, thanks for the HP, asshole. And then Cell doesn't really take a lot of damage, right? He's got type advantage, so bam. Right, that's all it takes. I imagine we won't be able to use... Yeah, Cell does too much damage. So we're not going to be able to use the android's Ghost Usher right here. So the androids, there are a couple of restrictions on their Ghost Usher. They're not super common, though. Number one, you can't do it if there's 2 enemies. And then you also cannot use the Ghost Usher if the enemy is below 35% HP, which Broly actually is right here. Remember that they will nullify Broly's AoE. They'll just block it. They will not get hit. 16, if his guard is up, we will live. And then Cell, of course, can survive also. So he is guarding, thank God. So now we're not going to take nearly anything on this turn, right? Yep, totally fine. And then once we get to AGL Broly is, this is the cheapest phase in the game. AGL Broly is number 2, probably, only behind that AoE Broly. Because this guy attacks 50 times per turn, and he supers twice per turn. It's not guaranteed that he'll always super twice per turn, but you will see this little prick super attack constantly. He really does. And the amount of times I've lost runs from him supering the 3rd slot in the rotation and stuff like that, it's just very frustrating to deal with, right? Super 17, look at the way he ate that, man. Super 17 is so much better than the other 120% lead EZAs. It's insane. Like, Gogeta, Gotenks, Cooler, like, these characters aren't even on his level. Like, they're nowhere near. I think the Super Saiyan 4s are pretty good. I mean, let me not underrate Cooler too much, but I just, Super 17 is, you know, here competing with the most difficult content in the game right now. Whereas, like, all those other 120% leads, they're all dead. You're not bringing Gogeta and Gotenks and these shitty units in here. No way. They have no place fighting this behemoth right here, right? So be careful with a lot of those 120% leads. But hey, you know, we got the androids, we got Cell and everything. So let me know what you guys think of Cell, sort of like no iteming the entire red zone. Cell and the android team specifically was the challenge. It would have been a bit easier if I had taken off like 16 and 18 and put like Tech God Goku on there, but I was just, you know, doing Cell's team, the android team. Not really just like sliding God Goku on there. So let me know what you guys think of Cell and everything. Thanks guys for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.